These three Town Hall 13 attack strategies are some of the easiest attacks that you can use in Clash of Clans. Even though these three aren't the best attacks for every base, they are still really easy and comfortable to get into and can be really good on specific bases. Let's start with our first army, Blizzard Edrags. This strategy works incredibly well if you are able to get an area of good chain, but also create a funnel. This can also be to removing the Town Hall from the core. This allows you to then send the Edrags around the base in a ring. In any case, when you start a Blizzard, you're going to use the Lava Hound first, then the Blimp. That way, any Seeking Air Mines go to her. Be very careful of 2 tile gaps because there could be giant bombs or tornado traps, so just be very careful. When you're going to initiate the Blizzard, drop an invisibility and drop a rage spell. This allows you to then time the invisibility spells every 4 seconds, and that also allows you to take more advantage of them underneath the rage and getting much more value. That way you can create enough of a solid funnel on one side with the Blizzard and also to remove the core of the base, which could be a pretty dangerous spot. You'll then want to be able to start setting up the other side of the funnel. This is typically done by cutting off one side with a baby dragon, and it's really useful because it's pretty cheap. But then you're also going to use your Barbarian King and Archer Queen on the other side. This way the Edrags go in the right direction and go towards the core. So when you're sending them in, you are not doing the typical 2 rage spells and the Grand Warren ability. You're going to use a singular rage, get them to do a little bit extra damage and to move themselves through, then use the Grand Warren ability. This will give you a lot of really good value. You can use a free spell against any sort of Edrags that veer off on their own and deal with an air defense, but otherwise you want to use the rage spells as you get into pretty much defenses that are going to hit you pretty hard. Inferno Towers, specifically on single, Scatter Shots, the Grand Warren Altar, because that hits really hard, but also air defenses as well. You just want to get as much chain as you can, so you're not letting your Edrags fall too quickly. As everything kind of works themselves through, you'll still have that Royal Champion that you're sending in with your Edrags, or you can send that in adjacent with them, so that way she moves in with the rest of your army, but is just deployed in a different spot. But from there, Edrags work incredibly easy, and as long as you have a couple Edrags remaining, this should still be relatively good. The heroes can get a lot of value from just creating the funnel, and the Royal Champion provides a lot of support in clearing out other remaining defenses, so that way you can get a pretty easy 3-star with the use of Edrags. Next, let's talk about my personal favorite attack, the Icy 5. This is an incredibly simple attack because all you have to do is look for single target Infernos. But you'll also want to make note of splash buildings. This is all but not limited to the Eagle Artillery, the Town Hall, the Scatter Shots, and the Wizard Towers. So try to look for an area of good splash. So you mainly want to try and prioritize the Town Hall and the Eagle as much as possible. From there, you should use a couple witches with an ice golem on either side of your entry to create the funnel. You will then deploy all of your ice golems, your witches, your log launcher, and your heroes to dive into the base. This is really where you get into a lot of the spam city. You might also want to try and find an area to lure out the enemy clan castle. It'll make it easier, trust me, so that way you can still easily move yourself through. It's a pretty simple strategy. You'll want to use a Grand Warren ability to protect all your witches, your skeletons, your heroes, and even the log launcher, so it can make sure that everything goes into the core. You want to make sure that you're getting to that core because the Town Hall is the most important. Dealing with the Scatter Shots, if they're around the core, is also really good. You just want to make sure that you're removing as much splash as possible, even if your queen doesn't go in the right direction. The Royal Champion can be used on an opposite side to provide more support for the witches and the heroes as they work themselves through, but once everything starts to wind down, start sending in your bat spells. This is a really good way of being able to start moving through. You'll want to make sure that you are using the bat spells in any case on a bat wave on the outside of the base so they can accumulate bats over time. The free spells should try to be timed in order to make sure that the Wizard Towers do not lock onto a large group of them. If unfortunately some of them do hit, then that's fine. But from there, you should easily allow yourself to move through quite simply and get a lot of great value. If you need to sacrifice some of your free spells, just know that you will need to get more splash buildings, so that way the wizard towers go down and it's a lot less tedious and you don't lose all your bats. Plus, since there's no air troops, you don't have to even worry about red air bombs. Now for this third attack, you probably have seen me break this attack down in my top 4 Town Hall 13 attacks, which you should check out after this video. But this attack strategy works very similarly, if not the exact same, to the IC5. The only difference is that you are also going in for the multi-infernos if there are any. But against a ring style base, or really any type of base for that matter, you'll want to make sure that you are setting up the funnel by using 2 Yetis and 2 super wizards on either side in order to create the funnel. This is where then you can take advantage of the rest of the Yetis, the super wizards, and of course the ice golem with the log launcher to move into the base. I would recommend a super wall breaker, especially if you don't want to wait to get everything to go in, and that way they don't just stay on the outside. That might be a mistake that you might make. But from there, you do want to make sure that you use an early Grand Warden ability, even if you get very little in there, as long as you can get some good value and still protect the log launcher. That's going to be important because you need that log launcher to remove the town hall if possible. But outside of that, you'll just want to make sure that what you're doing and allow maybe some of your heroes, like the Archer Queen on one side and the King, to get some really good splash buildings. This allows you to then send in your Royal Champion to dive in a little bit deeper with bat spells, which you can pair both of them really well. They also really pair really nicely with those free spells, which can work tremendously and gives your Royal Champion a bit of support as they work in. If you're dealing with something like a multi-inferno or a wizard tower and a scatter, that's a great place to drop in your free spells because realistically, that's 2 splash buildings for only the price of 1, which makes it super easy for you. Anything else, such as point defenses, you can still freeze over because it will protect your bats, especially if they're at low quantities. Outside of that, it's a simple bat spell attack that is still good, just like the IC5, but I personally prefer the IC5 if you want something super simple. Now, each of these armies are, like I said, not the strongest and best to use on every base, but they have their use cases and they're really easy. So if you notice these type of weaknesses in the base, these are really good strategies for them. If you want to see a video on base identification for a particular strategy for a more generalized audience, regardless if you are Town Hall 9, Town Hall 12, or even Town Hall 15, let me know if you want to see that in the comments below.